A new judicial machine was about to reshape the Middle East. It would consume thousands, but its first gear turned on February 1, 1979. It was lubricated with promises of democracy. An Air France jet descends on Tehran. Ayatollah Khomeini steps onto the ramp. Below, a sea of faces, millions. The roar of the crowd is a physical force, but the fate of 36 million Iranians is not being decided on the streets. It is being decided in secret. How do you hold power when the army can still strike back? The revolutionary leadership had an answer: preemptive terror. In Paris, Khomeini had promised Western journalists a future of fair trials and religious freedom. They believed him. That illusion shattered in days. Behind closed doors, away from the cheering masses, Khomeini authorized a parallel justice system. He appointed a chief prosecutor, not a lawyer, not a judge, a radical cleric named Sadegh Khalkhali, a man with zero legal experience who believed trials were an unnecessary luxury. The revolution needed protection, not procedure. While the world watched the streets celebrate, a new state apparatus was being born. Its purpose was simple: eliminate the old guard before they could regroup. By February 11th, the day the monarchy officially fell, the infrastructure for mass executions was already in place. On February 11th, 1979, Khomeini's secret plan became state practice. The infrastructure of retribution went live. A trial lasted 15 minutes, 30 at most. Revolutionary tribunals appeared overnight, operating from schools and mosques. An accused man stood before a panel of clerics. There were no lawyers, no witnesses. A verdict was read, and the sentence was carried out the same day. This wasn't justice, it was a purge. The primary target was Sadegh, the Shah's intelligence service. With up to 5,000 agents, its neutralization was a matter of survival for the new regime. The machine moved with brutal speed. Families learned of the executions from radio broadcasts, a name read from a list, crackling over the airwaves. General Ayatollah Nasiri was the head of Sadegh, the most feared man in Iran. On February 16th, just 5 days after the revolution's victory, he faced his tribunal. The trial took less than 30 minutes. That same night, a firing squad executed the Shah's chief of intelligence. The chief of intelligence was first, but he would not be last. Just 4 days after the monarchy's final collapse, the new power prepared a decapitation strike. On February 15, 1979, the target was the army itself. 4 men were brought to the rooftop of the Rifa school, blindfolded, bound. General Ayatollah Nasiri, the former head of Sadegh; General Manucher Khosrodad, commander of the elite Imperial Guard; General Mehdi Rahimi, Tehran's military governor; General Reza Naji, a senior commander of the Imperial Ground Forces. Days before, they were the state. Now, they faced a firing squad. The volley of shots cut through the Tehran night. But why make the execution of your own high command a public spectacle? It was a calculated signal. General Khosrodad's Imperial Guard was not just a ceremonial unit. It was the most combat-ready force in the Middle East, with tens of thousands of loyal soldiers. To prevent a military coup, the head had to be severed from the body, immediately. The executions were not a secret. They were a broadcast. State radio announced the verdicts, but the true weapon was visual. As the bodies lay on the roof, camera flashes pierced the darkness. The photographs were for the morning newspapers, for the city walls, for every barracks and airbase still loyal to the Shah. The message to the remaining loyalist units was absolute. The old army no longer existed. The initial executions required a system, a face. They found both in one man, Sadegh Khalkhali, a short cleric with a fearsome reputation. He was chosen not for his legal mind, but for his absolute lack of hesitation. His mandate was to turn vengeance into state policy. He made the roof of the Rifa school his courtroom, a symbol of total institutional collapse. Tehran's civil infrastructure was paralyzed. Schools now served as tribunals and prisons. The process was brutally simple. Accusations were read, defenses were ignored. The verdict was always death. The staircase of the Rifa school became a one-way path. Men walked up as defendants. They were carried down as corpses. Khalkhali's justice was swift. In a single morning, he could send 9 men to their executions. But this wasn't contained to one rooftop in Tehran. His model was replicated, creating a network of revolutionary courts across the country. The personal radicalism of one judge was scaled into an instrument of the state. By the spring of 1979, his tribunals had issued hundreds of death sentences. By April 1979, the tribunals had finished with the military. The machine of purges turned, targeting the civilian elite, the diplomatic corps. April 7th, Qasr prison. Muffled gunshots in an inner courtyard. Amir Abbas Hoveyda was dead. For 13 years as prime minister, he had been the architect of Iran's economic ties to the West, the public face of a secular, modernizing state. He surrendered in early April, believing his moderate reputation was a shield. It was not. His trial lasted less than an hour. No real evidence, no defense. What does the execution of a diplomat without proof of corruption declare? It is a statement. Diplomatic immunity is void. International law inside Iran is dead. Foreign governments watched the spectacle from their embassies. The cautious recognition they offered the new regime evaporated. If a man of Hoveyda's stature could be liquidated without trial, then no one was safe. The message was sent, and it was received. The new Iranian government was now diplomatically isolated. With the old government broken, the tribunals did not stop. They accelerated. By late April, the definition of an enemy of the revolution became a weapon, a category that could be expanded at will. It was no longer about the past. It was about controlling the future. The lists of the accused grew longer. Fresh ink added new names: ethnic minorities, religious minorities. Then, former revolutionaries, yesterday's allies who now questioned the path. The goal shifted from retribution to purification, a campaign to erase internal diversity. The state began the systematic dismantling of civil society. Spring 1979, a mass exodus began. Hundreds of thousands fled Iran. While the new courts purged the old state, the country's defense and economy bled out through Mehrabad Airport. How do you neutralize an opposition without millions of arrests? You create a terror so absolute that emigration becomes the only means of survival. The airport terminal was chaos. Crowds surged toward departure gates. Bribes passed hands for a single stamp on an exit visa. Families abandoned homes and businesses for a seat on a plane. The roar of jet turbines was the sound of a nation's elite leaving forever. Doctors, engineers, academics, the brain drain became a hemorrhage. They fled to Europe and America. But the most critical loss was in the military. Air Force officers understood their turn was coming. Entire squadrons chose desertion over the tribunals. Pilots climbed into their cockpits and never returned. They flew their American-made jets to neighboring countries. Iran lost a significant portion of its F-14 pilots. A catastrophic vulnerability. The war with Iraq was just 1 year away. The revolution achieved what executions alone could not: complete neutralization of dissent. Those who might have organized resistance were now scattered across the globe. A generation of talent was lost. By the end of 1979, the ground was clear. The opposition was gone. The dissenters were silenced. Thousands executed. Tens of thousands imprisoned. Upon this foundation of terror, the Islamic Republic was built. The instruments of the purge did not disappear. They were institutionalized. Revolutionary courts, conceived as a temporary tool of crisis, became a permanent pillar of the state, an emergency measure made routine. They continue to adjudicate matters of national security today. A political architecture designed in months, now operating for over 4 decades.